little flame, now get out the way. Whole lot of change, still been the same, put that on the name. I had to go through it just to get to it, look what I became. Elevate, level up, way to the top.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth episode of Star Motivates You. I'm your host, Linda Baker, along with my other host, Star Singletary.
Hey.
We would like to take the time to thank our sponsor, Best Buy, and also we'd love to thank Paul Brennol, award-winning filmmaker and cinematographer, for being on the show this evening.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you here, Paul.
It's an honor for me specifically.
Okay, so tell us about yourself.
Oh gosh, I'm hoping I'll try not to make this a 3-hour epic. I'll try to be clear and precise. Well, my name is Paul, as you know, and I grew up far away from Hollywood. A little town, I shouldn't say little city called Minot, North Dakota. And maybe some people have heard of it because it's the home of an Air Force base. And North Dakota, as many of you know, is clear to Canada as a border state. Minot was, I think, the size growing up of about 35,000 people. And it was a great place to grow up. And it's a great place to have a family, if you have kids, whether you're single or married, a young couple. It's like Mayberry. If people don't know who Mayberry is, look it up because it's an old TV show. But it had that, happy days. It had that wholesome feeling to it. And not a white picket fence, but it was close to it. It was just a great place to be a kid. Went to high school there. My mother and my father had an older brother, Paris. And no, he's not named after Paris Hilton, but he's named after Paris Gibson, who was the founder of Great Falls, Montana, whom we're related to. So it was really a great place to grow up, have a little dog, and a lot of really wonderful memories of growing up there and going to school and discovering kind of who I was. But I will mention my father, which kind of gets into my story. My father was a salesman and my mother worked in education. And if you know anything about various states and what they're sort of popular for, Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse Monument, that's South Dakota. North Dakota doesn't have that, but it's got agriculture, it's got small business, it's got the military, and it's got education. Those are the 4 big industries up there. So when I discovered filmmaking, people looked at me like I was an alien. You don't do that there. I mean, you have broadcasting and news, but the schools that we have there studied like broadcasting and the farm report, that type of thing. So I knew that when I discovered what my love was, I just went for it. And my parents were they weren't scared, but they were worried because Hollywood is not the Midwest. And that was growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it was great because I was growing up in the time of MTV of the 80s, not MTV now, because they actually played music. And it was great music because the 80s were so popular and fun.
Great music. Well, tell us, how did you get into the film industry?
It was interesting because this is going to sound weird. I still don't feel like I'm in the industry. And the reason I say that is because I never went to Hollywood or New York. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel a part of that. But how I got into the industry is weird because during my high school years, let me back up. My father, I said, was a businessman. Well, he was a radio and TV salesman. So he worked at a TV station. And as a kid who loved photography and video, where do you want to go? You want to go to the TV station, see the cameras and all that stuff. And during times I went to visit my mother, and I was the youngest. So I was closer to my mother than my father. But my mother worked in education. She was a secretary. And my father was a radio and TV salesman. So I went out to the TV stations. And I don't know what happened, but I think I don't know how old I was, early teens. There was a door open and there was a studio. And anytime a person like me, like a musician, or as soon as they see guitars or lights or whatever, you're just enthralled with that. And that to me was Hollywood. I wanted to do that. And my father looked at me like, you do not want to do this, because he was in the business side of it and he did not have a really good manager, but he was really great at what he did. But I loved the industry. And I said, how do I do this? So I began talking with the people there in the creative services department and the news department. And they were kind of telling me what they did. And y'all know what news is and y'all know what commercials are. And I looked at him like, I'd like to do both, but my love really hit. I mean, really hit during my senior year of college. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but we went down to Bismarck, and Bismarck was about an hour and a half away. It's the capital city, and I just happened to find the American Cinematographer magazine, and I'd never heard of it before, but it was all about Hollywood cinematographers, directors of photography. It was the holy grail of what I looked for, and I began reading it, and it was the issue that came out when the first Lethal Weapon came out in '87. So I began reading it, and I couldn't put it down, and I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Very cool.
That's very cool. That's cool, right?
It's very cool.
So who was your biggest influence?
It was that moment, and gosh, I've heard many people say there was like one moment, like their big break, and then I've heard other people say I haven't had one big break. I've had several big breaks, and I like to think of myself having more than one, because more than one, to me, is great, because then you can meet other people and you could expand your horizons. My big break, I guess, came when I joined the Air Force. I was in high school and studying cinematography, studying photography, which I absolutely loved. I was learning how to. I remember when I took my first photograph with my first camera, and that did it for me. I thought, this is it. So when I was about to graduate college or high school, I didn't know what to do. I thought I knew of UCLA, USC, all those big film schools, which I could never afford. And I thought my brother and my dad were Army. And my father said, I think you'll be best in Air Force, because Minot is the home of the Minot Air Force Base. And people who see this may have actually heard of it. And I decided, yeah, let me join the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force for 4 years. And I was stationed over in Italy for a year and a half. Took thousands of photographs, as I never think that I would ever come back here again. But when I came back to San Antonio, my second duty station, I got to meet my first Emmy-winning Hollywood cinematographer, and his name was Ken Lampkin. And people may know his work because he photographed, I think, the pilot for Friends. He did the Wings sitcom with Tim Daly, and he's best known for his work on the sitcom Frasier. And I got to meet him during the Wings Frasier transition. This was November of '91. He was in San Antonio making a independent film, and I thought, I don't care what he's making, I just need to meet him. So I got to meet Ken and spent a couple of days on the set with him. He was so gracious, and I thought, wow, I don't know how to do this, but I want to do this. So he sort of gave me that little boost.
Yeah, that show was really popular. That was a great show too.
Well, it was wonderful meeting somebody who does TV, because y'all can see, you don't have to go to a movie to see it. So
yeah, no, that's
my
great.
first major influence.
Well, we see that you've won numerous awards. What was it like to win all of those awards, Paul?
I can't really describe it, because the very first award, for many years now, I've been trying to move to Phoenix, Arizona. I have a bunch of family there, and I've been there several times on reunions. And every time I'm there, I don't want to leave. So when I had to leave and come back, it was, excuse me, it was 2016. I made my first documentary about 4 women who do Irish clogging, and the lead, Haley, wanted to do like a news feature like they do in the news, and I thought, no, you don't. Let's make this a film. So we got there. We shot for about a month, and I decided to, you know what? My brother and my sister-in-law actually live in Chandler, Arizona. At the time they did. This is 2016. And I found the Chandler International Film Festival on Film Freeway. I entered my film, and I won Best Cinematography.
Wow.
And I thought, it boosted me up like, holy cow. I was driving through McDonald's drive-thru when I got the notice that I won. I'll never forget that. And I thought, let me send this off to LA, New York, Chicago, Texas. And with that little film, I won like 10 awards for Best Cinematography. So that was the start of it. And everything else from that point on, you kind of get a hit. Like if you do, I hate to say your favorite drug, whatever your drug may be. It could be beer, it could be your favorite sandwich, whatever that hit is that motivates you. It motivated me to send the film to everything that I did from that time, from my first hip hop rap video to my feature documentary to business profiles. It just started to it started to go heavily until COVID of 2020. And I was doing so much work that it was so great. And I was getting best cinematography for a documentary from Tokyo, from London, and from Cannes Shorts. Not the Cannes Film Festival, but a film festival in Cannes for best cinematography from Hollywood, LA, Chicago, Rome, Italy, Paris, France. It still blows me away. And I think I have over 100 of them now.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome.
It's very, very humbling, but you think to yourself, am I being punked? I mean, was I the only entry? I mean, you're giving it to me because I'm like default, but it's so great when people that you show your work to agree that you're talented, specifically people in the industry that are big names. So it's incredibly honoring and it's incredibly humbling.
You good? I said, can you tell the audience about some of the awards you received?
And I'm still the last part of it I'm still not getting from you. I'm so sorry.
Can you tell the audience
Glenda,
about the awards you received?
Tell the audience about the awards that I've received?
Yeah.
One of the things I put they put a poster of me. This is a filmmaker helping filmmakers website that I no longer use, but there was a poster of me, and the saying was, "If you," I want to get this right because I should have looked at it today to get the phrasing right. Make films because you love telling stories. Don't make films to win awards. And I'll always remember that because people say when you win awards, guess what happens? Your ego inflates.
Right.
And then when you have so many of them, one of the things that I've experienced is, well, okay, well, you've got all these awards. Stop talking about your awards because we don't care about the awards. We just care about your work.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost me a couple of jobs because of that.
Oh.
And I thought, that's a real shame. I mean, I'm proud of the award. I'm sorry?
No, that's a real shame. That's sad because, like, you know, when you win an award like that, you know, that should make you more hireable.
Well, you would think so. I mean, I was actually interviewing with a company, not a company, but it was a department, something several years ago. And I was actually in Arizona, and the place was literally 30 minutes where I was staying. And they had me they were interviewing me. And I said, yeah, I won LA, New York, all this other stuff. And I thought, I'm well qualified. I'd love to join you, blah, blah, blah. And then they sent me a reply later saying, we went with another candidate. And I thought, well, can you share any feedback? And they said, well, we liked you, but you talked about your awards too much. And I thought, it didn't make any sense to me, but sometimes it could be maybe a burden for them to hire somebody because they think you're going to be an egomaniac, or not the positive, but the negative. And I never thought about that, but I thought, okay, well, you just watch my work and
Right.
You'll see how good I am.
Right. Maybe you were overqualified for it.
Yeah. And it was a city job, so it paid exactly what I was looking for. But that's another thing is you're overqualified. And I thought, yeah, that's because you don't want to pay me what I'm worth.
Exactly.
But I know so many people go through that, but I thought I can work with you on money, but it never got to that point.
Yeah.
But right now, of course, I could work for 40 grand a year. Don't want to, but I can. Specifically, if I live in the place I want to live in, I'll supplement it.
Right. Well, you're so talented, Paul. You really are.
Thank you.
And I'm sure people will see you on here and you'll get some more calls.
I'll get gobbled up.
For sure. What age did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
Oh, gosh, since I've been 5. That was a real influence because I remember at 5 or 6 watching, y'all probably are too young for this. It was the Super Friends cartoon on Saturday mornings. You had Batman, Superman, all the things, and I just fell in love with the entertainment of it. And throughout my life, I was always attracted to TV, media, film. I was always attracted to it. So, and ask the question one more time. I don't want to get on a rabbit trail with you.
I just wanted to know what age you had decided you wanted to be.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that, and I thought, when did I? It's like, and I remember distinctively buying my first film camera, and this was I think when I was 14 or 15. My brother actually was he was big into photography back then. He actually had his own studio in my hometown for 20 years. So he was really big into it. And my whole family is artistic and educational. That was the 2 areas. But I remember seeing a camera, and I think men, maybe women, that are gearheads. They love the mechanics. Right. I don't care about any of that stuff. That is not in any way. I look at a camera saying that's my car. I want to know the optics. I want to know the lens, the f-stops, the shutter speed. That's what got me triggered. And it was around 15 because I remember going up on top of this hill in my hometown, taking my camera out, and I was just learning color. And this was in the ages of film, not digital. So the camera came in. The camera was a normal size camera. You opened up the back of the camera, and you took film canisters about that big of 35 millimeter Kodak film, 24 shots in a roll, putting that in and just going. And they either had to be daylight or tungsten. We're spoiled these days because the camera decides that for you. We had to decide that back then. So we had to set the speed and all that stuff. And it was just really great fun learning how terrible I was, but how good I was as I learned more about it, like color and lighting and telling stories. How can you tell a story in a single photograph? And it all started then.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Do you have any tips for people who are interested in film?
Yeah, don't get jobs I want. I guess any tips, I remember when I was in film school, and I went to film school at Montana State University in Bozeman, and those people who watch the Yellowstone TV series, that's where I went to school. So it was great having that beauty around me. And I remember we had, it was a great undergraduate degree, and I would put that up against UCLA, USC, but we're not in the major areas of those cities, but it was a great degree. Well, we had a Hollywood cinematographer come in and talk to us. And if you know the movie, he was really, he passed, his name is Andrew Laszlo, Hungarian cinematographer. He photographed the Rambo movie with Sylvester Stallone. He photographed Inner Space, Newsboys, and he was a real legend in the Hungarian cinematography. And then he came here. And I even asked him, he came and spoke at our school one day, our class, cinematography class. And he says, do you have any advice for any of us? And he looked at us, he goes, I don't give advice. And he was serious. He wasn't joking. And I thought, why not? I didn't want to be rude, but he says, well, if I give you advice and it doesn't work out well, I'll feel bad. So I thought, okay, I understand that. But the advice that I would give everybody, 3 words, that is never give up. Never give up. People are going to hate you. They're going to love you. They're going to keep you at a distance, talk about you, because Hollywood is drama. They make their living off this. I don't. And if you want to go to Hollywood and the politics are very far left as far as liberal and all that stuff, I don't want to get into any of that. That's just not my deal because of unions. You have to know the right people, all that stuff. It's a schmooze game. And I like meeting people like you guys in a normal setting. You can talk about your passion, but there it's a schmoozing business. And I'm not too big of a fan of it. Besides, I only wanted to work in LA, but not live there. And I don't think that's possible. But the advice that I would give would be never give up. And if there's another thing there's another phrase that I love hearing, and that is, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Exactly.
And that scares me, the thought of doing things I've never done, like my first hip hop rap video that I did 7 years ago. I was scared to death because I'd never done one. But after I did one, I want to do more of them because I won best cinematography and best music video from that.
You'll have to share that with us.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. And the guy, the hip hop rapper, was a airman in our Air Force base, and he did rapping on the side, and he was very good.
Very cool. Yeah, we'd like to see that. So I have a question for you. So what was the first brand of camera that you ever used or maybe held in your hand for the first time?
Yeah, well, the first one that comes to mind, since my father worked in TV, I would go out there and see the video cameras. And the video cameras were your standard. I don't know if I think they were Ikegami, which is an old tube camera, unlike the chip cameras we have now. But the first camera I owned was a Pentax K1000. And I don't think they make them anymore. I think I know that there's the digital brand, but I remember going to Kmart, if you remember that retail store. That's where my brother worked. And I went there and I bought my first Pentax. And I remember buying the roll of film, which was like, I don't know, $10 or whatever it was back then. This is like the mid 80s. And I went out and I just started taking my first photographs. And I looked through the camera and I just knew it. I just knew I wanted to be a cinematographer, videographer, photographer. I loved directing, compositing lighting, using shadows. It just spoke to me. And I just said, this is it.
You were born for it, yeah.
I feel like I was, yeah, because I'm very visual. I'm sort of like the typical stereotypical guy because I'm so visual.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a perfect fit for you.
Yeah.
What was it like being in the Air? What was it like being in the Air Force?
Yeah, the Air Force itself was I'll never forget it. That's for sure, because I went through a lot of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
When I joined the Air Force, my goal, and I with my father, before I joined, it was I graduated high school and then spent a year working before I entered the Air Force. So it gave me enough time to just relax and chill out. But we visited all branches: Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, and my mother definitely didn't want me to do the Marines. And we had a cousin who died in Vietnam, so he said,
Oh,
no Marines for you. Navy, I wasn't too thrilled about being in a tube for 6 months, like being in a submarine. And I have
yeah.
claustrophobia, so that would definitely not have been a good fit for me. But the Air Force was one heck of an experience because I asked them, I was like, I want to be a motion picture cameraman. And they looked at me like, you need to shut the F up and do what we tell you. I mean, they weren't really kind about it, but they sent me to Italy for a year and a half, my first duty station. And I took my camera over there and I took so many photographs of everything because when you're in a foreign country for the first time, and I don't consider being in Minot and going to Canada as a foreign country because it really is and it isn't. Italy was a whole, I mean, it was amazing. And I just loved it. And then then the Persian Gulf War hit of 1990, and that scared everybody. So when that was done, I was then stationed down in San Antonio, and that was great because it was the first major city I'd ever lived in, and that's where I met one of my heroes, which was Emmy winner Ken Lampkin, and he was actually from San Antonio, worked for a TV station there, and at the time I was there, they were making an independent film, and the star was Dirk Benedict from the '80s TV series A-Team, and I thought, wow, it's like I don't really care about the actors, I just want to talk to Ken, the director, who's also the cinematographer, and I spent about 3 days on the set with him, just watching him work.
It's funny because I was going to ask you, so you met Dean Semler and Ken Lampkin. What was that feeling like getting to meet them?
Yeah, well, Ken was the first, as you know, when I was in the Air Force. This was 1991, November of 1991. And I've got some photographs of me and Ken on the set, and I will always cherish them, always. And it was me on like a camera operator, and Ken is the director of photography. And I looked at it, it's like, this is what I want to do, because I just love this. Well, after I got to the Air Force, then I thought I need to go to film school. Where do I go to film school? And Montana State is where I went. Well, and with that, I studied all disciplines from writing, producing, directing, cinematography, editing, everything. And during my senior year, I was just about to graduate. Well, 3 movies were being shot in Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley of Montana at the time. Robert Redford, Dennis Quaid, and the action guy Steven Seagal. And the director of the film was Dean Semler. So I thought, I have to meet Dean. I don't care if it's a piece of crap film, which it was. It just didn't go anywhere. But it was so nice being able to meet Dean. His cinematographer was Stephen Winden, who does the Fast and the Furious films. And his camera operator was a guy named Stephen Campanelli, who's been Clint Eastwood's cinematographer for 20 years.
Wow.
And it was just amazing watching Dean direct and Stephen Light and Stephen Campanelli do his Steadicam. And I only had black and white film at the time. And this was 1997, so digital wasn't out yet. But it was so great seeing the utter controlled chaos of the film crew set up everything, light it. His second unit cinematographer was shooting the same time the A unit was shooting. And Dean was amazing because he had this wonderful grandpa feeling to him. He was so generous with his time. He was so generous. I never asked him for a job because I felt that it was inappropriate for me to do that.
Right.
Because how you need to do about film is make best friends with the assistants. And they weren't really all that thrilled. So I thought, and they were very good at what they do. I think they were just too busy. But I just loved it. And I'm still in touch with Dean to this day.
That's good. For sure. And are you a huge fan of documentaries?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I said, are you a huge fan of documentaries?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to say no, I'm not, but yes, I kind of am. I mean, what I'm a really big fan of is just good movies.
Good movie.
I don't want to I don't want to stereotype myself, say I don't deal with narrative. I've seen people like that, and it cracks me up because I thought if you've got that amount of money, you can choose what you want to do. Good for you. But I really enjoy it. I was actually watching a documentary today on Pluto about Australian horror action films, and it was fascinating because they were so terribly good. And then they got into George Miller with Mad Max, and that Australian film community. I mean, they changed the world with the Mad Max films. And Dean Semler shot Mad Max 2 and I think 3. And Fury Road, that was just out 10 years ago. Dean was about to shoot that, but he didn't. But documentaries I really like if they're good. But Ken Burns, of course, with the I think country music one that he did about 4 years ago, that was fascinating. But documentaries, I want to view them like narratives. I want there to be action. I don't want to just sit there and listen to a talking head for 5 minutes because you're going to drift off. But I really like a lot of documentaries. But if they're about filmmaking, absolutely. If they're about a subject that I don't really am interested in, if I could watch it and be brought in, I love that.
Throughout your setbacks, what inspired you to keep going?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said throughout your set, like through the setbacks that you faced, what inspired you to keep going?
I'm sorry, the audio is cutting out terribly. I'm so
I
sorry.
said, what inspired you to keep going? Like throughout your setbacks.
To me, it's inspiration and motivation. I think you're kind of born with it, but a lot of times too, if you continue to get setbacks, you wonder, do I quit or do I keep going? And I remember in 2006, a lot of the producers that I'd worked with from the start of my career were awful, but the people I worked with were great. So I stayed. And it all goes back to those 3 words: never give up. I never will give up doing what I want to do. I even, during some downtimes because of the recession of 2020, I chose to work as a janitor just because I liked just cleaning things. It was just one of those things where I took a job because I needed work and I didn't want to be around anybody. A lot of times, if you have an outgoing personality, you'll be a great director, which I think I am. But a lot of times people may misunderstand your personality being either too flirtatious or just being annoying. Specifically, that type A personality. So the janitor was a real type B for me because I worked alone, but I suffered a work injury and I couldn't do that again. So I kind of look at everything like I just want to keep doing what I love doing.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I answered your question there.
Did he answer your question, Star?
Yeah, that was my fault. I didn't mean that was my fault on that.
No, you're
No
fine.
problem.
So, what's some of your favorite projects that you've worked on, Paul?
Oh gosh, I'll say it this way: it's like, who's your favorite child? Because everybody has that. To me, I'll sort of quote Dean Semler because I heard a radio interview, and he said, "Do you look forward to retirement?" And he said, "I cannot retire. I love what I do too much to stop doing it. And if I have to, due to health reasons, I want to keep doing it part-time, and whoever will hire me." So ask the question again. I'm so sorry.
I just wanted to know what some of your favorite projects that you've worked on.
I think with, the whole kid thing, I love every project I've done because if I didn't like it, I'd stop doing it and leave. And a couple of the projects, I did a web series. This was back in 2011. And it was a series about high school kids, mostly Native American high school kids, going from high school to college in that transition. And the project manager we had was horrible. I mean, she was blunt, rude, but she was one of the core founders, so she wasn't get fired. We got fired because we were and I couldn't stand it, but I loved the work. But then I found out the reason why she was that way, and it made me feel a lot better. But I still was let go from the program, which I'm so glad I was. But I look at the first one, Magic Tap Cloggers, that started it all with the awards. And anything that I haven't done artistically is kind of my favorite because it challenges you. Like that hip hop rap video that I did. I mean, I'm an old white guy. What did an old white guy do about shooting an urban hip hop rap video? You just don't think of that. But I thought I have to creatively do this.
Yeah.
And when I'm like, I was in my late 40s at the time, and the guy was in his like early 20s, had a wife. And when we went, I thought, how do I shoot this the right way? We can do it. Continuity doesn't matter in music videos. Some do if you're telling a story. But I said, let's just shoot this like 4 or 5 different times. And I'll use maybe a blue filter and maybe a red filter. And I thought, let's just have fun. Just go. So we just shot it. And I was walking all around him, and he was following me. It was so nice. It was outside, like in an urban alley to make it look more. It wasn't out in a wheat field. That wouldn't make any sense. We did it in that urban. And it really great because we won Best Music Video at a film festival in Michigan. We won Top Shorts, Best Cinematography. And at the Houston World Fest, I received, I think, a bronze for Best Cinematography.
Wow. Can we see this online, this video?
Yeah, it's on my website. If you look up Paul Brennol Films, I think Paul Brennol, or just look up my name and go to my website. It should be a Wix site, Paul Brennol Films. Yeah, Paul Brennol Films. It was, I think, PB Films and Media, but I wanted to change it around so all those will be on there. And I've been retooling it, making it easy for people to find. So just go up to the menu under commercials and music videos. And another music video that I did was really interesting because it was in those clubs you go to downtown and you go to the basement and it looks like it's dug out.
Underground?
Yeah, it looks very niche, yeah. It's like a dive. It's like a cool dive. And I was watching this. I was with some people that I knew outside a pastry shop, and a woman was just playing guitar like they do in New York. And I said, let's make a music video. So we went to that. It was called the Mosaic in downtown Tyler. We went down there. I lit her up, photographed it. And the biggest problem was we didn't have sound. We just had natural sound. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to send this into film festivals for cinematography. And I won at the Sydney International Film Festival in Australia.
Amazing.
So it was just weird. It's like you're an awards magnet. And I thought, well, yeah, it feels that way, but I still want to work.
That just speaks volumes for your work.
Yeah, and I've got, I think the biggest one was I did a huge documentary in 2019, right before COVID, for an oil company. It was an oil drilling company out of Western North Dakota. Traveled to 4 states, get interviews, came back, edited it all down, and I said, I'm going to send this in to New York. What the heck? Why not? And I won Best Director Honorable Mention from the New York Film Awards.
Wonderful.
Good, that's great.
So it's just amazing when you're recognized and you do not expect it.
No, that's a good.
And I was trying to tell people, but yet I don't want to say, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. I don't want to do that. Like you're 5 years old saying, look at what I could do. I don't want to do that. I'm just so proud of being honored.
You should be.
Yeah, you should be. You should be. Do you have any projects that you plan on working on for next year?
I would love to have some lined up right now. My current situation is kind of bummed because I haven't worked in several months. I'm in Oklahoma City right now, and I moved here because an ad agency hired me on as a editor or as a video editor producer. And our main client was John Deere. And being from North Dakota, I know John Deere. I mean, you can just look outside, you see him every day. But 4 to 5 months into it, the position completely changed to animation and 3D compositing. I don't do that. I mean, I know the programs. I just have I have no skills. So I got laid off. So I have been looking to move to Arizona since that time. And being able to find work is great, even if it's volunteer work. It just keeps me busy, which I love doing, and it keeps my skills going. But right now what I want to do is my focus is moving to Arizona. And I've got family there. And my mom and my father are both gone. And being in Oklahoma, I mean, Oklahoma's a nice place. It's just I don't have any family here. And there's really no work, at least for me, that I've tried. So I thought I just need to pack up and move. And I really want to go to Arizona. And I've got a bunch of family there. And I was just there in mid-May. And again, you go through so many things of the economy being the way it is. Entry level is all they have. So will they even look at a guy like me? Because, I can't work for $20 an hour anymore.
No. And, you've got the skill set and the background that someone's going to pick you up. I'm sure you'll find something
Yeah,
out
he'll
there.
find one.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's kind of a bummer when you have all these skills and you get rejected all the time. It's almost like being on a date and you try to, you try to go up to a young lady or a young man, whatever your sex is, and you constantly get rejected. I mean, constantly. And you don't know what it is. Maybe I got to work out. Maybe get a tan. Maybe don't ask those same people the same, But it's sort of like that. And I kind of kid my, but I've got a job interview next week in Arizona, and some reference that I know filled out some applications for in Paradise Valley, Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix, and that's where I want to be. It's such a beautiful area, close to LA, but not LA. So I'm hoping something comes up and being able to do as much work as I can.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find something, no problem, Paul. I have a question for you.
Please.
So, what's some of the greatest advice someone's given you that you could pass along to another cinematographer?
I guess it would be the same as I had mentioned before, never give up. If somebody tells you you'll never make in this business, never believe them. I mean, never believe them. Because a lot of times it could be based on maybe the fear they have of you taking over their job. I mean, it could be that, or it could be, you're so good, I'm jealous, I hate you. And I say that because if a woman sees another woman in a club and she looks hotter, she's going to hate her immediately without even knowing her. It's like that same interactive. I had a dear friend of mine, her name is John. I haven't talked to the guy in 20 years, but he lived in Houston with me. We went to church together, and he was incredibly good looking, incredibly in shape, and he had money. So I wanted to hate him immediately, but he was the sweetest guy. We became dear friends. And I thought, if somebody comes up to you and gives you advice, just say, never give up. If you've got talents and skills, follow them. Don't listen to people. If it comes to divorce or something else, that's another matter itself. Or if your family disowns you, that's something that you have to figure out yourself. But if you've got a dream, that dream is your dream for a reason. And follow that dream until it may be time to give it up, only if you have to, like family reasons, financial reasons. And I came broke several times. In fact, this past year, I checked my account because I moved back up to my home state to be near my father who was dying. And I checked my account and I had $20. And I was scared out of my mind, scared. How am I going to afford anything? But my faith in God helped me because he opened doors up. And there were sort of some difficult doors, but I was able to get through it. But I knew being where I was at the time was horrific. And I knew that I had to get out of there. And when I came down to Oklahoma City, it was much easier, but it was still hard for me to lay it off. So through all the ups and downs, I'll just say, hey, my faith was number one in my life. Christ is number one in my life. Mm-hmm. And I just trust in him every day, even when it's extremely hard. And when I go to church, and there's nobody there that I relate to because I'm an artist. Everybody else is a lawyer or works for the state. It's kind of a gut punch, but I love being there because I feel just good presence there.
Right. Well, I definitely admire your perseverance. You're on the road to huge success. We see it and everything, all your work that we've seen. And we hate to end this show, but unfortunately, it's that time. We've really enjoyed having you on the show, Paul. I know people are going to be watching this, and hopefully they'll go to your website, check it out, and see some of your work and your awards, and your phone will start ringing off the hook.
Yeah, let's hope. I'll get a lot of spam calls now, and I was like, ugh. Because of the election coming, I was like, oh my God. But yeah, thank you so very much, and my apologies about the audio. That's all. It's another thing. You want to be able to hear somebody, So but thank you so much. You guys are so good.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
We hope to have you on the show again at a later date. Thanks again for coming on.
When I move to Arizona and win that Oscar, I'll be back.
Absolutely. We'll hold you to that.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you. We'd also like to take the time to thank again our sponsor, Best Buy. And we hope that you guys will stay tuned next Sunday at 7:30. We're going to have Tony Keels, motivational speaker, on the show. And we're looking forward to having him on next week at 7:30. So stay tuned for that, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great evening.
Thank you again.
your lane, stay in your lane. Wait, this ain't a game. Been through the flame, now get out the way. Whole lot of change, still been the same, put that on the name. I had to go through it just to get to it, look what I became. Elevate, level up, way to the top, headed to the peak.